Our content is presented by BetOnline, which is your number one source for the NBA Finals and Stanley Cup playoffs this season. Every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. When the game is over, head on over to our online casino, get in on a game of blackjack or poker, unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today to get in on all the action. Use promo code BELIEVE. That is BLEAV for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online. The game starts here.
Coach rankings for the SEC. And so I've put together my list here. We'll start with number 16 and work our way to 1. So I spent a lot of time, put a lot of thought into this to rank the coaches 16 to 1 in the SEC. A lot of great coaches in the conference. And so without further ado, here's my list. And Chris, I want your comments as I roll through it. So here's my SEC coach rankings. Get ready for 2024. So number 16, I've got Jeff Lebby, Mississippi State head coach. And really just because he is not only has he never been a SEC head coach, he's never been a head coach, period. This is his first head coaching job. And so to me, I put him at the bottom just because of that. I think he is a great offensive mind. He's a proven offensive coordinator. But how is that going to translate to being a head coach? There's a lot of questions on this Mississippi State team as well with all the guys they've lost. They've brought some in. But I've got Jeff Lebby at number 16.
Yeah, there's probably two obvious answers for that question. That's one of them, and I bet I know who the next one is.
Yes, I've got Vanderbilt head coach Clark Lee at number 15. You know, when Lee was hired, I thought that he could be kind of the guy to get them back going like a lot of people expect them to, like a good SEC team winning some SEC games. He knows the culture. I thought that was the biggest part. He knows the culture. It's been far from that, though. You know just as well as anybody, Chris. Yeah. He's 2-22 in SEC games in 3 seasons. Last season lost all 8 SEC games by a large margin. So something has to change, I think, this year for Lee. But yeah, I've got him at number 15.
Yeah, you almost get an incomplete if you're those two coaches. One by virtue of not having coached, one by virtue of working at Vanderbilt, which is just a brutally tough place to win, as we all know.
All right, so number 14, I've got Billy Napier.
Okay.
He took over at Florida when they had kind of taken a step back. Recruiting wasn't going well. The play on the field was not going well under Dan Mullen. So they go get Billy Napier. And usually when a coach takes over a program that's taken a step back, it's their job to move them forward. They were mediocre when Billy Napier took over, and they're still mediocre at best, really. I mean, he's 11-14 in his 2 seasons at Florida. They got that win over Utah in Billy Napier's Florida debut. They got that win over Utah, turned a lot of heads. People thought, hey, maybe this is the guy. But it's really fallen off since then. They haven't been consistent at all. He's got a lot of pressure heading into this season. He had a great run at Louisiana, did great in the Sun Belt, but you got to wonder, is the SEC the place for him? Is Florida the place for him? So many expectations, and really has kept them mediocre at best.
Yeah, well, of course, I don't know what the rest of your list is, so it's hard to critique the whole thing till I know, but that's when it feels like the justification for moving him up or down either way can't be more than about one spot.
Right. So number 13 is Sam Pittman, Arkansas head coach. And that was one of those 13 and 14 with Pittman and Napier. They're both in trouble heading into the year, so you can put them in whatever order you want to, but Sam Pittman took the Razorbacks to a 9-4 season in 2021, but it's really gone down since there. He had a good quarterback in KJ Jefferson. Last year, 4-8. Of course, injuries had a lot to do with that. Jefferson hit the portal. He's at UCF. Rocket Sanders, South Carolina. And again, another coach with a lot of pressure going into this season. We'll see if he's able to get some pieces in place, but still a lot of question marks at Arkansas. So I've got Sam Pittman, number 13.
If I were to make a counter argument, it would be this, that recency bias reflects a lot of the way we analyze this or that in sports and in life. But if you wanted to make a case Sam Pittman was better than that, I think that right now, I mean, you could say, hey, look, let's not forget what kind of a mess of a program he took over and how over the moon people were with Sam Pittman. That's also part of the story. Now, you might also get a beer thrown at you in Fayetteville if you say that right now, too, and maybe that's a correct take. Maybe he just caught lightning in a bottle and it's not going to work. But that's another one of those, like your last one, where it feels like this is probably the right territory given the list of guys ahead.
Yeah, for sure. So Sam Pittman, 13. I got South Carolina head coach Shane Beamer, number 12. I feel like he has exceeded some expectations in South Carolina, but he's also, I feel like, taking a step back in some areas as well.
Yeah.
7-6, his first season, 8-5 in 2022. He got the wins over Tennessee and Clemson, but then last season dropped 5-7. So he's kind of taken a step back, which is something you don't want to do in the SEC, especially the way the SEC looks now with new teams. He's got some nice additions out of the portal this year, so we'll see what he can do. But I think he has the potential to get back to 7 wins this season. But, I think I have him just because he's taken a step back. I think he is a good coach, but just because he hasn't been able to be consistent, I got him there at number 12.
Yeah, I think Shane Beamer is kind of is the glass half empty or half full guy because I think people see him very differently. I still remember what he did taking over a program that was really struggling, and I thought winning a remarkable amount of games those first few years. I still remember what he did to Tennessee.
Yeah.
Again, last year, like Sam Pittman is the one that's fresh on our memory, but I think that overall he's done a good job, and I could even argue maybe Shane Beamer a spot or two higher, but again, feels like the right territory because there have not been, there's not been a SEC East title. I know divisions aren't a thing anymore. Like a real thing. It's kind of been those end of the season spurts where he's hung his hat. Not to minimize those, but yeah, that's where Shane Beamer has made his mark on the good side.
Yeah. So Shane Beamer, 12. And number 11, I got Mike Elko coming back to Texas A&M. He served there as defensive coordinator before going to Duke, where he went 16-9 in 2 seasons, including that 9-4 year in 22, which was one of the best years for the program. Elko was really successful at Duke, and I think is a great hire at Texas A&M, in my opinion. He's got the resources there. There is no doubt there's resources in College Station, and I think they're going to get behind Elko. And if Elko could be successful at Duke, I think there's no doubt about it with the resource behind him that he's going to be successful at A&M. I mean, what he did at Duke and really turning that around, getting some really good players in, I think he could definitely do that at A&M and get that program back kind of the way it was, several years ago when they were, vying for a spot in the 14 playoffs. So I got Mike Elko just based off what he's done at Duke there at number 11.
Let's tie Florida into this because Florida is kind of a good example. Like Steve Spurrier won big at Duke like nobody'd won in a while. Sometimes that translates to a bigger stage. It certainly did for him. Sometimes you hire that guy that wins more than he should at that spot. Now, it's different. That was the ACC, and this would be the Sun Belt. But Billy Napier, another good example of a guy that won big at a place, and you think, all right, he's a winner. Does it translate to a bigger stage? Sometimes the bigger stage crushes you. And A&M is a place where expectations have kind of gotten outsized in proportion to the winning the last 3 or 4 decades. So I don't know where that's going to go, but because we have seen these kind of moves where you bring a guy that's had success at a lower stage, there's nowhere near the pressure at Duke. Yeah. Maybe 2% that you're going to face at A&M, and how he handles that's going to be interesting.
That's a good point there, Chris. But I got Mike Elko, number 11. All right, here's my top 10 in my SEC coach rankings. I got Brent Venables at number 10. He took over a good, program in good shape at Oklahoma. Struggled in his first year, put a really nice season together last year, 10-3. They beat Texas, who eventually won the conference, made it to the college football playoff. Venables has got the pieces offensively. He's the defensive guru, though. He's the defensive guy, and I feel like his defense is at Oklahoma have yet to be that really good, sound defense. And I think he's put the staff together and some guys to make sure that happens this year to have a good year one in the SEC. But I think Brent Venables, in his short time as a head coach, especially after last year and what they were able to do, I got him at number 10.
Yeah, one good year, one disappointing year. The good year is the most recent year. I mean, if you reverse that, then maybe the rankings are different. I'll be interested to see what he does.
Yeah, I will too, for sure, there at Oklahoma. So Brent Venables, number 10. Number 9, I got Auburn head coach Hugh Freeze. He is entering year 2 at Auburn, finished 6-7 last season. But we got to go back to his time at Ole Miss and what he did there in getting that program rolling. He beat Nick Saban in Alabama. And then, of course, we know what all happened with the scandal at Ole Miss. He then went to Liberty, and I know Liberty is a lower level of football, but he won a lot of games. He did great. He got that program rolling there at Liberty. So I think we know what he's capable of. We know what kind of coach Hugh Freeze is, and that's a really good college football coach. And I think what he's capable of, what I'm expecting him to be able to do at Auburn, is turn this thing around. And it's been since 2019 since Auburn has had 9 wins or more. And so I think this is a good place to start for Freeze. Good offensive mind, and he needs to use that to his advantage at Auburn to win some games. But I think based off the history of Hugh Freeze, not just Hugh Freeze at Auburn, but all of Hugh Freeze, I got him at number 9.
Yeah, look, the history of Hugh Freeze at Ole Miss, and again, taking over a bad program, and look how fast he got Ole Miss, not just – I mean, he beat Alabama twice. Nobody does that. Beat the greatest coach of all time in college football. And, you know, we know about what happened next. And my thought was when he got to Auburn, okay, fantastic hire, home run. He's one of these guys that can just magically transform the pieces around and make, you know, chicken salad out of chicken something else. And we all know the talent he was left at Auburn. Didn't happen last year. They were just okay. But the feeling at Ole Miss when he left, if you listen to people plugged in, was that maybe the talent was really falling off. And maybe the stuff that led to his exit just masked what would have been an exit of a different kind or a fall of a different kind later. In other words, they didn't think he could sustain it. We will see. Auburn is another one of those places that you can get crushed beneath the expectations placed upon you. And Nick Saban being gone is going to help any coach in that job. But I'm very curious to see how that one's going to go. And I would be lying if I told you I had a great feel.
Yeah, I understand. So I got Hugh Freeze, number 9. Number 8, I got Mark Stoops, Kentucky head coach. So you think back to 2021, they were able to put together that 10-win season. But since he's gone 7-6 the last 2 seasons. But I feel like he's got Kentucky kind of consistent. I mean, they're not consistently great. They're not consistently bad. They're just consistent though. They're right there. They have good seasons. He typically has them in a bowl game. I mean, like I said, 7-6 the last 2 seasons. I mean, he's putting together winning seasons for Kentucky football. And I think that's big for Kentucky, especially you think back on the history of Kentucky football. It has not always been great, but Mark Stoops has had them in a great place, I think. He's brought in some guys this year. I think that will help a lot. Some pieces. We all know he had the Stoops to A&M this past off season, all that was going on with that. He's staying at Kentucky. He's bought in there at Kentucky. So I've got him at number 8. Just he's brought some consistency to Kentucky football.
Yeah, he has. And I feel like people have started to take that for granted now, which is probably the mark of a good coach. So let's not forget, you know, the 2-10s with Joker Phillips and how bad some of those teams were. Now, on the other hand, if you could say Mark Stoops was always able to schedule himself, you know, 3 wins right off the bat in September, that may not be as easy to do going forward. You take some of those give me games out of it. Maybe it looks a little differently, but in total, hard to argue what he's done in a decade, especially with what he took over.
Yeah. So Mark Stoops is my number 8 coach in the SEC. Number 7, Josh Heupel, Tennessee head coach. He arrived in Knoxville to turn the Vols program around. You think back to We've seen some great Tennessee football programs, late 90s, early 2000s. Was when really I was watching college football, loving it, and Tennessee was up there at the top. And you think back to 2022, what he was able to do, 11-2, beat Alabama, and I think that is what propelled Josh Heupel up here in my list, is what he's been able to do. 9-4 last year, nothing to shake your head out. They wanted it to be better. Obviously, Tennessee fans did, but this year they have one of the most highly anticipated quarterbacks coming in. Heupel's an offensive guy. I think they'll work great together. So I like Josh Heupel and what he's been able to do at Tennessee. Again, last year they were a little down on their 9-4, but I mean that's a good record with the schedule that they had. So I got Josh Heupel number 7.
Yeah, I'm getting to the point now where I know what your list is. I may not know the order, but I know who's left. I think I might go a spot higher with Josh Heupel. Now, the question with him is, can they build a consistent defense? That's been kind of the doubt. I think he's done pretty well there. Now, he also took over a room full of well, I'm not going to say had a ton of talent when he took the job at Tennessee, but Jeremy Pruitt was a defensive coach. So maybe there were some built-in parts from the old regime that helped, but boy, he sure built the offense out of nothing. I think that to me feels a spot too low, but I know how you can argue one of the two guys that I might debate you on this one. And it's not an easy decision.
Yeah. Yeah. And when I got to this point of the list, it was tough. It was tough putting these down. But number 6, I got Eli Drinkwitz, Missouri. If I had done this list last year, Eli Drinkwitz would have been nowhere near this spot. But what he was able to do last season really moved himself up in the ranking of SEC coaches. I mean, you think back, I mean, there was maybe some hot seat talk heading into last year, but then put together 11-2 record, got a Cotton Bowl win over Ohio State. It was remarkable what he did. I mean, he inherited a program that had gone 6-6 before he got there. His first year, COVID year, 5-5, then 6-7 the next 2 seasons. But he's gotten in there. They've stuck with him, and he's got Missouri to a really good place right now. He's recruiting really good, and I think they're in a really good place. And frankly, I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. I mean, I don't think that they're going to be a playoff team every year, but I think he's going to keep Missouri consistently up towards the top of the SEC, even with the schedule. I mean, I think Missouri players are saying, hey, we can go to Missouri and win football games now. And I think for Eli Drinkwitz to have got Missouri football to that point, I think is huge.
Yeah, and I think I have the answer in the question as I ask it, but I think that's one of those that I'm guessing that if they weren't preseason top 10 by a lot of people this year, you would probably have him a little bit lower. I think there's a little bit of baked-in expectation for where this is headed, which is not unfair. It's your list, but I think that's got to be part of it here.
Yeah, certainly is. And so I got Eli Drinkwitz 6. So my top 5 here, SEC coaches. I got Lane Kiffin, number 5. So just a year ago, Ole Miss had their best record there at 11-2 program history. Previous year, they had 10 wins. I mean, Lane Kiffin, we talked about what Hugh Freeze was able to do at Ole Miss and the games they were able to win and where he got the program. Lane Kiffin has kind of taken that a notch ahead, and he's turned this Ole Miss program into a contender. I mean, a lot of folks have them as possibly a playoff team this year with the roster that he has and puts together. I mean, he recruits well. He uses the portal well. Players want to play for him. Jackson Dart coming into his 3rd season. Lane Kiffin has never had a 3rd-year quarterback. I mean, I think that's huge for him this year. I think him and Dart are going to be a dangerous combo for this year. So Kiffin was able to turn the program around at Florida Atlantic and Ole Miss. And you think back to his
and
early
even Tennessee
and Tennessee, things didn't end well at USC, but I think really when he had his time under Nick Saban and kind of built his coaching resume back up again there. I think what he did at Florida Atlantic, what he's done now at Ole Miss, I think has gotten him and just the great offensive mind that he is, got him at number 5 on my list.
Yeah, he feels like a guy, if you said you got to pick a coach and he's going to win between probably 8 and 10 games every year, and you lose if he goes over that or under that, he's probably your guy. I think to move up higher, he's got to get to the playoff and win a couple games and get that total up. But I mean, certainly you would think with Lane Kiffin, there would be a little bit more self-destruct in there than we've seen, but it feels like he's got them to a really good floor. He just hasn't gotten that one huge win yet to get him over the top.
And I think it's coming. I think it's coming this year for him to win a big game. So I got Lane Kiffin 5. Number 4 on my list is Texas head coach Steve Sarkisian. Again, another great, bright offensive mind in college football. He was able to get the Longhorns to the playoff last season, won the Big 12 there in his second season. That was the first time since 2009 Texas had a 12-2 record. You think back to 2009, that's when they lost Alabama in the BCS national championship. The roster he's put together, I think, is another roster that's going to be contending for a national championship again this year. And with the guys Sark's brought in, he's got Quinn Ewers, who's expected to be the starting quarterback. So there's no doubt Sark has got this program in a great position. It's the reason they brought him to Texas. He's got great resources. And just talk with the people who are close to the Alabama program. What they said about Sark when he was at Alabama is just what he brought to the offensive room of just being able to change things on the fly. New quarterback comes in. That's okay. He can adjust things in the offense to fit that quarterback. He's just a brilliant offensive mind. And so that's what's got Steve Sarkisian. The fact what he was able to do at Texas last year, the way he's recruited this year, I got Sark there at number 4.
Yeah, if you wanted to grade him on the whole of his career, you could knock him down a couple spots for failures other places. But to be fair, that was kind of a different life. Steve Sarkisian's cleaned up some of his personal issues, and thank God for that, because you feel for anybody in that spot. It's a horrible place to be, but it feels like now once he's gotten past that, you can see, or you started to see last year, why people regarded this guy as such an elite mind, and it feels like they are poised to win a lot of games for a long time.
Yeah, certainly so. So I got Steve Sarkisian, number 4. Okay, so number 3, I got Brian Kelly, LSU. He's won 10 games, at least 7 straight seasons. He's been a head coach. Won the West a couple of years ago at LSU. He got kind of Notre Dame back to national prominence when he was there. Had the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback last season. But the problem, obviously, and if you watched LSU at all last year, defense was horrendous, not good at all. Cost them a lot of games that the offense could have won for them. The defense couldn't follow up. So I think that's the biggest thing for LSU and Brian Kelly this year is, and he has made a lot of changes on the defensive staff, personnel coming into this year. But I think Brian Kelly would have been in a different position had he had a good defense, had he won the games he should have won a year ago.
Yeah, and look, the defense rests on Brian Kelly too. It was a little bit of an astonishment to see how far they fell off, but he made up for it in the offense. I mean, the track record of consistency there in Notre Dame has been so good that I think he's easily got to be a top 4 guy, and 3 feels about right to me.
Yeah. So Brian Kelly 3. Number 2, I got Kalen DeBoer. He's been a winner everywhere he's coached. I mean, there's a reason that he's following Nick Saban at Alabama, is because Alabama wanted a winner as a coach, and so they went and got Kalen DeBoer. Won the Pac-12 championship at Washington, 3 NAIA national championships at previous stops. He has a total career record. Now, I understand there's some NAIA in this record, but 104-12 as a head coach. Won 21 straight with Washington. Only lost in year 2 this past year, coming in the national championship to Michigan. Again, another great offensive mind. We saw what he was able to do with Michael Penix and his style of offense that he's bringing out to Alabama, I think fits well. I mean, Kalen DeBoer, a lot of folks may be wondering why Alabama went after him. The reason they went after him, he is a winner, and he's going to win at Alabama. You know, as the search was going on at Alabama and I saw coaches' names come across, I thought Kalen DeBoer is a guy who, if Alabama fans want to keep seeing the Tide go to national championships, I thought Kalen DeBoer was the guy who could get them there. And of course they ended up hiring him. So I got him at number 2 because he wins, and I think he's going to keep winning in Tuscaloosa.
The day he got hired, we did a live stream, and I got pushback from a co-host who was on it with me, whose opinion I value. We just disagreed. We got pushback from the audience. My tune on Kalen DeBoer has never changed. I think that was a terrific hire. As I pointed out at the time, he's actually got a higher career winning percentage than Nick Saban as a head coach. Am I saying that he's a better head coach than Nick Saban? No, I'm not. Nobody is. But if you can do that, that says a lot about your record. And this isn't a 2-season sample size. Washington had not been a power in a long time. They were fun to watch last year. I think the ranking that you have here is entirely justified.
So I got Kalen DeBoer 2 and number 1. No surprise here. Kirby Smart, Georgia head coach. Easier one there. I mean, we could go on and on about Kirby Smart, what he's done at Georgia. Not only the top SEC coach, but probably the best college football coach in the country. Now that Nick Saban has retired, and he was, right up there with Nick Saban in all the conversations anyway, but he's won 2 national championships, 11 or more games in 6 of the last 7 seasons, which is remarkable. 3 SEC championships. Very well could have been in the playoff last year and won it. I mean, just because he lost the SEC championship to Alabama kept him out, but certainly one of the best college football teams last year, and Georgia is and will remain as long as Kirby Smart's there, I think, on top of college football.
Chase, would any program have traded places with Georgia the last 6 years?
Absolutely not.
Presuming Kirby Smart coaches another 6 years, would any program trade places with Georgia the next 6 years?
I don't think so.
Yeah, you got the right guy, number 1.
Yeah. So there's my list. Starting Jeff Lebby at 16, Clark Lee, Billy Napier, Sam Pittman, Shane Beamer, Mike Elko, Brent Venables, Hugh Freeze, Mark Stoops, Josh Heupel, Eli Drinkwitz, Lane Kiffin, Steve Sarkisian, Brian Kelly, Kalen DeBoer, and Kirby Smart. My coaches, my coach rankings there for SEC coaches. All right, list, Chris? You good with that?
Love it. Love it. I did not have time to make my own. So I don't know how mine would have differed. That would have been fun to do to see, because once you hear somebody else's case, it biases yours. But there was nothing that I think that the one that I pushed back on probably the most when you said it would have been Missouri. But at the same, Eli Drinkwitz, but at the same time, it's also entirely defensible given the forward-looking trajectory of the program. I think it was a good list.
Yeah, for sure. So, and we'll do some other rankings as we get ready for the season, do some position group rankings, all that kind of good stuff here